A millionaire asked his son to choose a new mother among 5 rich women, but he chose the poor maid. On a crisp autumn morning in the quiet suburbs of New York, the Collins mansion stood bathed in golden light, majestic yet lonely. Inside the spacious kitchen, Emma Rivera, a young woman in her 20s, carefully polished the long wooden dining table. It had been 4 months since she started working in this house as a housekeeper, and with each passing day, she had learned every corner, every small habit of its owners. What Emma never expected, however, was the bond she would form with the little boy who lived here. Ethan Collins, 8 years old, eyes clear yet shadowed by the sorrow of losing his mother. From the very first meeting, Emma sensed the fragility in his soul. Ethan often came to her with innocent questions, sheets of colorful drawings, and the rare smiles that this house had long forgotten. The master of the mansion, Richard Collins, was a successful businessman. After the sudden death of his wife 8 months earlier, he buried himself in work, hoping busyness would numb his pain. Yet the more he immersed himself in the corporate world, the more he realized Ethan was becoming quiet, withdrawn, and aching for the embrace of a mother. That was why Richard made a strange decision, a plan he believed was the best way to give his son a complete family again. He invited 5 women from the upper class to live in his mansion for 30 days. In the end, Ethan would be the one to decide which of them would become his new mother. Emma knew she was just an outsider. A housekeeper had no place in the story of the wealthy. Yet her heart trembled at the thought of Ethan giving his affection to a stranger. For she knew during these past 4 months she had been the one to fill that void, with simple meals, with paper origami animals, with patient words of comfort. That morning, just as Emma set down the cleaning cloth, the sound of engines echoed through the front gates. She looked up through the large window and froze. 5 luxury cars drove in one after another, gleaming in the sunlight. One by one, doors opened, and women in exquisite dresses and glittering jewelry stepped out. Upstairs, Richard stood by the window, his gaze stern. He called his son closer. "Ethan, do you see? They've arrived. The 5 women I told you about." The boy clutched his father's sleeve. They're staying here, Dad? For 30 days. And at the end, you will choose one of them to be your new mother. In that moment, Emma had no idea that her life and the fate of this family was about to change forever. The Collins mansion's front yard transformed into a stage. With every car door that swung open, the women emerged one by one, not just elegant, but performing, each stride rehearsed, each smile sharpened like a weapon. The first, Sofia Delgado, in a navy blue dress, carried the cold, sharp presence of a Manhattan lawyer. Every step she took was as if she were entering a courtroom, assured and unwilling to lose. Next was Clara Hastings, a renowned cosmetic surgeon. Her pure white dress made her look like a Hollywood star, her bright smile betraying calculating eyes. Vanessa Bloom, an award-winning architect, wore a daring black jumpsuit. She glanced around the mansion as if already imagining design changes at first sight. From the 4th car stepped Olivia Kerr, a social media influencer with millions of followers. In a striking red dress and perfectly curled hair, she smiled confidently, aware that curious neighbors were watching from afar. Last came Isabella Cruz, daughter of a wealthy media family. In a champagne-colored gown with a diamond necklace blazing, she walked as if the stage already belonged to her. Emma stood behind the window, clutching her cleaning cloth tighter. In that moment she felt small, invisible, erased by the grand entrance of these women. Upstairs, Ethan hid behind his father, his wide eyes fixed on the new arrivals. They're really staying with us, Dad?" he whispered. "Yes, son," Richard nodded. 30 days, and then you will choose one of them." A knock echoed at the door. The butler welcomed the women inside. The grand chandelier glittered above, the hall prepared to impress. Sophia spoke first, her voice brimming with confidence. "The house is magnificent, Richard. I must admit, you have impeccable taste." Clara smiled faintly, her gaze sliding to Emma carrying a tray of glasses from the kitchen. She lowered her voice, just loud enough for a few to hear. "Though perhaps your staff seems a little clumsy." Emma approached, her hand trembling slightly as she set the glasses down on the glass table. One tilted, spilling a few drops. Olivia chuckled softly, glancing at Sophia before murmuring, "Well, a maid will always be just a maid." Ethan frowned and rushed to Emma's side. "It's okay, Emma. I'll help you clean it." The boy grabbed a napkin, trying to wipe the spill. His gesture made the 5 women exchange looks, surprise mingled with disapproval. Richard stepped forward, his voice firm. "This is Emma Rivera, who has cared for this home for months. I expect you all to treat her with respect." Sophia arched an eyebrow, forcing a smile. "Of course. It's just, we all want everything to be perfect, don't we?" Tension filled the grand hall. Emma lowered her gaze, gripping the cloth in her hand. She knew, from that very moment, her presence would be a thorn in the side of these 5 women. And the 30 days ahead would be anything but easy. The first days passed under a tense atmosphere. The mansion, once quiet, now felt like a hidden stage, where every move was scrutinized. Emma knew she was the thorn in the eyes of the 5 upper-class guests. On the second morning, just as Emma finished cleaning the long wooden staircase, Vanessa Bloom strolled by with a cup of coffee. She accidentally spilled drops onto the steps. "Oh dear," Vanessa drawled with mock sympathy. "What an unfortunate mess. I suppose you'll have to scrub it all over again." Emma bent down to grab her cloth, but Ethan, running down from upstairs, saw everything. "You did it on purpose," the boy said loudly. The room fell silent. Vanessa chuckled, leaning down to pat Ethan's head. "Sweetheart, sometimes children missee things. Adults aren't clumsy like that." The boy pushed her hand away and rushed to Emma's side, eyes flashing with protectiveness. The next day, Clara Hastings carried a crystal vase into the living room. She set it near the edge of the table, then pretended to bump it. The vase toppled, water spilling across the floor. Clara immediately turned to Emma, who was tidying nearby. "Be careful. I hadn't even set it down, and you shook the whole table." Emma froze, but before she could speak, Olivia cut in. "Exactly. A house this grand deserves staff who know how to take care." Richard entered just then. He saw Emma kneeling to clean, while Clara stood calmly nearby. What happened here? Clara quickly changed her tone. "Oh, nothing at all, Richard. Just a small accident." Suspicion flickered in Richard's eyes, but he said no more. Emma pressed her lips together and kept scrubbing. That afternoon, on the back terrace, the 5 women sipped tea, discussing their strategies to win Ethan over. "I've planned a trip to Disney World. Children always love it," Olivia bragged. "Education is key. I've already contacted the best private school in the city," Sophia added. "I could redesign his bedroom." "A modern, sophisticated space will make him feel more mature," Vanessa suggested. Clara sipped her tea, smiling. "Health comes first. I've booked appointments with the top pediatrician." Isabella shrugged, her gaze challenging. "And I bring connections in media. Ethan needs a mother who can open doors for his future." They spoke confidently, but none mentioned what Emma had been doing every day, listening to Ethan, understanding the sadness in his eyes, and giving him small, genuine joys. Meanwhile, each night when Richard retreated to his study, he noticed something troubling. The women wore perfect smiles in his presence, but their eyes gleamed with rivalry. Yet when Emma was with Ethan, the boy transformed into a different child. Cheerful, lively, full of energy. One evening, Richard sat with Ethan in the library. "What do you think of the new guests?" he asked. Ethan thought for a while before whispering, They're pretty, they give me gifts, but they're not like Emma. Not like her, how? Richard leaned closer. The boy bit his lip. When you're around, they smile. But when you leave, they look at me. Differently. Emma's always the same. Richard fell silent. The words of an 8-year-old struck at the doubt growing in his heart. On the 7th day, tension exploded into a scene no one forgot. Emma was preparing lunch in the kitchen when raised voices echoed from the hall. She rushed out to see Isabella holding a stained dress, pointing straight at her. "You did this? You spilled tomato sauce on my gown." Emma froze. She hadn't even touched the dress. Ethan nearby shouted, "It wasn't Emma. I saw it. You dropped the plate yourself." Silence fell. Isabella flushed, quickly brushing it off. Children? Always imagining things. Richard appeared, his gaze sharp as it swept over the scene. He said nothing, only told Emma to continue her work. But inside, he knew something wasn't right. That night, Emma sat alone in the small staff room. She looked at her calloused hands and wondered, "Do I really belong in this house?" Outside, the laughter of the 5 women echoed through the hallways, a stark reminder of the unbridgeable divide between them. But then the door creaked open. Ethan peeked in, holding a paper crane he had just folded. "Emma, I made this for you. Don't be sad, okay? I need you." Emma pulled the boy into her arms, tears falling onto his tiny shoulder. She knew the road ahead would be hard, but for Ethan's sake, she would endure. One Monday evening after dinner, the 5 women gathered in the grand living room. The chandelier glistened above, but it couldn't hide the thick air of scheming. Sofia Delgado began, her voice low but firm. "Let's be honest. The boy is far too attached to Emma. If this continues, none of us stand a chance." Vanessa Bloom raised an eyebrow, leaning against the sofa. "Exactly." Every time she walks in, Ethan's eyes light up. I've never seen a child express emotion so openly. Olivia Kerr sighed, swirling her glass of wine. She's just a housemaid, yet she acts like family. The boy confuses affection with service. Clara smirked. The problem is, Richard sees it too. Even if he hasn't said anything, his eyes give him away. Isabella Cruz flicked her hair, her voice sharp. Then it's simple. We make Emma understand her place. A servant doesn't get to compete with us. Their gazes met, gleaming with agreement. A secret alliance was born. The next morning, the plan began. Just as Emma finished cleaning the marble floors, Vanessa walked in with a small can of paint. She pretended to trip, spilling it across the polished surface. "Oh dear, what a mess. Emma, clean it up." Emma bit her lip, kneeling to wipe. Ethan appeared, saw everything, and shouted, "I saw you. You spilled it, not Emma." Vanessa flashed a fake smile, crouching to meet his eyes. "Sweetheart, sometimes children imagine things." Ethan clenched his fists, but Emma shook her head gently, signaling him to stay quiet. That afternoon, Clara entered the kitchen where Emma was preparing dinner. The doctor glanced around, then, accidentally, dropped a large jar of salt, scattering crystals across the floor. "Oh, how clumsy of me," she said, then turned to Richard as he walked in. "Perhaps your staff needs better training." Richard frowned but said nothing. Emma silently swept up the mess. That night, in their private lounge, the women plotted further. Sofia tapped her pen against the table. "Small accidents won't be enough. We need something undeniable." Olivia nodded. "I have friends in the tabloids. If rumors spread that Emma is trying to seduce Richard, it'll stick." Isabella leaned in. "Better yet, hire a private investigator. We only need a dirty file, even a fake one. Wealthy men hate scandals." Vanessa smiled coldly. Once her reputation is destroyed, Richard will have no reason to keep her. Clara lifted her glass, eyes gleaming. to our future. The 5 clinked glasses, their smiles tinged with malice. Days later, as promised, a man in a suit arrived, introducing himself as a private investigator. He handed Richard a thick folder. "Mr. Collins, I have information on your employee, Emma Rivera." Richard opened it. Pages claimed she had been fired for theft, accused of inappropriate behavior with children, and had caused trouble in past households. Richard's brow furrowed. Dates didn't match. Some documents looked suspicious. But he stayed silent, only nodding. When the man left, Richard stood in his study, gripping the folder tightly. Someone was fabricating lies. But who? Meanwhile, Emma felt the weight of the outside world. On her way to the market, she noticed neighbors whispering. One woman even crossed the street to avoid her. At checkout, the cashier's forced smile carried judgment, as though looking at a criminal. Back at the mansion, Ethan ran to her, clinging tightly. "Emma, are they saying bad things about you? I heard someone call you a fraud." Emma swallowed hard, stroking his hair. "Don't worry, sweetheart. They're just rumors." But inside, she knew the lies were spreading, isolating her more each day. That evening, the 5 women gathered again, their satisfaction clear as whispers of the rumors reached them. Sophia smirked. "You see, high society never forgives a dirty past." Olivia chuckled. "Tomorrow the tabloids will print it. Then she'll be finished." Isabella added, "And Richard will have no choice but to pick one of us. The game's about to get interesting." Glasses clinked again. Their malicious alliance had solidified, while Emma, unaware of the storm ahead, stood on the brink of ruin. That night, when the mansion had fallen silent, Richard sat alone in his study. Before him lay the thick folder delivered by the so-called investigator. Under the desk lamp, the accusations glared back at him. Fired for theft, inappropriate behavior with children, disrespectful toward former employers. Richard flipped through the pages, his grip tightening. The more he read, the more absurd it seemed. Dates didn't align. Some signatures looked clumsily copied. Most of all, in 4 months, he had never seen Emma behave in any way close to these accusations. He closed his eyes, recalling evenings when Emma patiently helped Ethan with homework, when the boy laughed loudly folding origami with her, when she soothed him during nights of grief for his late mother. If all that was an act, she would be the greatest actress alive. But Richard's instincts told him it was genuine. The next morning, Richard began calling families Emma had worked for. "Hello, this is Richard Collins. I'd like to ask about Emma Rivera." The first, a mother of 2, immediately replied, "Emma, she's an angel. She cared for my kids for 2 years, never a problem. We cried when she left because she moved away." Richard took notes, then dialed another number. A doctor answered, firm in tone. "She worked in my clinic. Honestly, Emma is one of the most honest and dedicated people I've ever met. Anyone speaking ill of her is lying." 3-4 more calls. Each answer the same. Trustworthy, hard-working, gentle with children, not a single complaint. Richard leaned back in his chair, sweat dotting his forehead. He whispered, "Then those papers are forgeries?" That evening, walking down the hallway, Richard overheard whispers from the living room. He paused, pressing himself against the wall. Vanessa spoke quietly. "The rumors have spread everywhere. Soon, Emma won't have a place here." Olivia chuckled. Richard won't risk keeping a scandalous maid near his son. Sophia added confidently, "That's the rule of our world. Once your reputation is stained, it's over." Heat surged through Richard's face. He had suspected, but now he knew. It was them. These 5 women had orchestrated everything. He returned to his study, his heart heavy, but his mind clearer than ever. Before bed, Ethan knocked softly and entered, holding a paper crane. "Dad," the boy whispered, "they said Emma's going to be sent away." "Is it true?" Richard pulled him close, looking straight into his anxious eyes. "Son, I promise you, Emma isn't going anywhere, but I need time to prove the truth." Ethan nodded, wrapping his arms around his father. In that moment, Richard knew he had to protect not just Emma's honor, but his son's trust as well. From the day Richard uncovered the truth, he changed his strategy. Instead of confronting them directly, he would pretend to be swayed by the rumors. Only then could he make the 5 women careless and overconfident. That evening, during dinner, Richard suddenly spoke in front of everyone. "I've been thinking a lot about what's happening. Perhaps you're right. Emma shouldn't be so close to Ethan." The words cut Emma's heart like a blade. Her hands froze as she carried the serving tray. Ethan stared in shock, dropping his spoon. Sophia immediately smiled. "Richard, at last you understand. Children need role models with education and status, not a housemaid." Emma bit her lip, lowering her head. Tears welled, but she held them back. Ethan leapt up, shouting, "No! Emma isn't just a maid, she loves me!" The room erupted. Olivia leaned forward, feigning gentleness. "Ethan, sometimes adults must make choices for your good." Richard tapped his spoon on the table, his voice stern. "Ethan, sit down. This is an adult matter." The boy trembled but shouted louder, "I don't want a new mother. I only want Emma." Emma turned away, unable to meet his eyes. Her heart shattered into pieces. That night, in her narrow, dimly lit room, Emma broke down in sobs. To her, Richard's words were not strategy, but a knife to the heart. She believed she had lost not only her place in the mansion, but the fragile family she had quietly built in her heart. When Ethan knocked and entered, his face red from tears, she only embraced him tightly. "Emma, don't go. I don't need anyone else. I only need you," Emma whispered hoarsely. "But your father has decided. Maybe I should leave." Ethan clung to her, sobbing. "If you go, I'll go too." Emma shook her head quickly, wiping his tears. "No, sweetheart. You must stay with your father." In the dark, she told herself, "If this is my fate, I will accept it. But at least Ethan's love for me is real, and that no one can take away." Meanwhile, in the next room, the 5 women raised their glasses in celebration. Vanessa laughed triumphantly. "See? Richard believes us now. Emma has no chance." Isabella nodded, eyes gleaming. "At last the maid knows her place." Clara whispered, "Now it's just us, and one of us will be the next Mrs. Collins." Their laughter echoed down the hall. They had no idea it was all part of Richard's performance, and that he was quietly waiting for the day to reveal his hand. The big day arrived. The Collins mansion glowed with lights, the grand hall draped in fresh flowers and white linens. Dozens of guests, Richard's friends, business partners, and relatives, entered one by one. Cameras flashed, everyone eager to see the outcome of Ethan's new mother choice. Emma stood in the kitchen, her heart heavy as stone. She was certain tonight would be her last in the mansion. Her hands trembled as she set a tray of food on the counter. "Just finish this party, then I'll leave quietly," she told herself. Meanwhile, the 5 women appeared like stars on a red carpet. Sophia in elegant black velvet, Clara in shimmering silver, Vanessa in a fiery red jumpsuit, Olivia in a flowing ocean blue gown, and Isabella in dazzling gold. They smiled gracefully, shaking hands with guests, eyes gleaming with victory. Richard stood on a wooden platform, Ethan beside him. The boy looked nervous, clutching his father's sleeve tightly. "Ladies and gentlemen," Richard began in his deep, steady voice, "today is a special day. I want to thank these 5 women for spending 30 days with my family." Applause filled the hall. The women lifted their heads high, smiling brightly. From afar, Emma heard it, her chest aching. Richard continued, "As promised, Ethan will make the choice, and as his father, I will respect his decision. Ethan looked around, then suddenly shouted, "I don't choose anyone. I only want Emma." Gasps erupted across the hall. Eyes turned to the boy, then to Emma, standing quietly in the corner. Sophia rushed forward, grabbing Ethan's hand. "Ethan, darling, you're too young to understand. Emma isn't fit to be a mother." The boy yanked his hand free, shouting louder, "She's better than all of you." Tension gripped the room. Some guests whispered, others frowned. Richard raised his hand for silence. His voice cut sharp and deliberate. "Before the decision, I want everyone to see something." The lights dimmed. The large screen above the stage flickered on. On the screen, the truth unraveled like a cruel play. Vanessa tipping over paint with a sly smirk, Clara pushing the vase to the floor, Olivia's lips curling as she whispered, "Just a maid." And then, the damning finale, Sophia and Isabella's voices, cold and gleeful. "The rumors have spread. Soon, Emma will be gone." The hall froze in silence. The women's faces drained of color. Guests turned toward them with scorn. Richard stepped forward, his voice low but powerful. "This is the truth. For 30 days, it wasn't Emma causing trouble. It was them, plotting, fabricating, even hiring a fake investigator to smear her name." He held up the folder. "These papers are forged. I called every family Emma worked for. All confirmed she is honest, dedicated, and loves children." Gasps and murmurs swept the room. Ethan ran to Emma, hugging her tightly, his voice ringing out, "I want Emma to be my mom. I don't want anyone else." Tears streamed down Emma's face. She trembled, looking at Richard. He walked toward her, taking her hand before everyone. "Emma Rivera?" His deep voice resonated. "You haven't just brought joy to my son. You've shown me what I truly need." He knelt on one knee, pulling a small box from his pocket. Inside, a ring sparkled. "Will you marry me and be Ethan's mother?" The hall went silent. Emma covered her mouth, tears flowing. Ethan clung to her, shouting, "Say yes, Emma!" Through sobs, she nodded, "Yes, I will." Thunderous applause filled the mansion. Some guests wiped their eyes. The 5 women, pale and disgraced, slipped out under the weight of disdainful stares. Richard embraced Emma and Ethan, his voice breaking, "Our family is finally whole." After the party, news spread swiftly across the city. The tabloids that once mocked Emma's scandal now published the video Richard revealed. High society seethed at the filthy scheme of the 5 women. Sophia was suspended from her law firm. Clara lost countless patients as clients boycotted her practice. Vanessa's biggest design contract was canceled. Olivia lost half her followers as the public branded her a fraud. Isabella was cut off by her family, her reputation in ruins. Once they held their heads high, now all that remained was disgrace. Meanwhile, the Collins mansion brimmed with joy. Richard and Emma's wedding was simple, yet heartfelt. Ethan proudly carried the rings, his brightest smile on display. As Emma walked down the aisle in her pure white gown, everyone saw clearly. She belonged in that place. Time passed. 2 years later, in a sunlit garden, Emma sat on a bench holding a baby girl, Sophia Collins. Ethan ran in circles, laughing, then stopped to hug his little sister. Richard approached, wrapping an arm around Emma. "Are you happy?" he asked softly. Emma smiled, her eyes shining. "Happier than I've ever been." A gentle breeze carried blossoms around them. The little family sat together, a living proof that love and kindness can overcome every barrier. And so, a story that began with lies and schemes ended with a family made whole. 5 years passed since that fateful day. The Collins mansion, once heavy with schemes and lies, had become a home filled with laughter. In the vast garden, golden sunlight spread across the green lawn. Emma sat under a tree, holding little Sophia, now 5 years old, her bright eyes a mirror of her father's. Nearby, a 3-year-old boy, Gabriel, played in the dirt, his tiny hands messy, but his laughter ringing like bells. Ethan, now 13, taller and stronger, still carried the same gentle smile. He kicked a ball across the yard, then hurried back to help his mother with the younger ones. "Careful, Gabriel. Don't fall," Ethan laughed, steadying his little brother. Richard stepped out from the porch, a basket of fresh fruit in his hand. He looked at the scene before him, his heart swelling with pride. 5 years ago, he was lost in loneliness and the weight of fatherhood. Now he had a true family, whole and at peace. Emma glanced up at him, her smile radiant. "See? We've come a long way." Richard sat beside her, wrapping an arm around his wife. "And I've never been more grateful for life than I am now." Sometimes the news still mentioned the 5 women of years past, but they had faded from high society, each drifting into obscurity. To the Collins family, they were nothing more than a distant memory, a reminder that deceit never wins. Ethan, now a teenager, never forgot what Emma had done for him. In his private journal, he wrote, "Mom, Emma didn't just save Dad and me from loneliness. She taught me that real love can't be bought with money or power." That evening, the family gathered around the garden table. Sophia chattered about kindergarten, while Gabriel banged his spoon against the wood, making everyone laugh. Richard lifted his glass, eyes moving across each beloved face. "Here's to us." 5 years ago, people thought this family could never be whole. But today, we have everything. Emma clinked her glass with his, her eyes shining. It wasn't luck. It was love and trust. Ethan added firmly, and never giving up on each other. Laughter broke out around the table. Sophia and Gabriel clapped as if they understood. In that moment, the Collins mansion was no longer a house of secrets, but a symbol of joy, a family that had found each other through every storm. A story born from lies and schemes found its ending in the simplest truth, that love, real, unshakable love, always triumphs.